Hey everybody, Jason here. I hope you're all doing really good. So I have another mystery to solve here today, and I'm going to read to you what it is that the customer says. This says, the iPhone is an iPhone XR and has similar symptoms to a video you did a couple of years ago. The phone was on a charger and then just went dark, never to power on again, no screen, no charge, nothing. I took it to a cell phone repair. They said it was something to do with the logic board and they could not fix it. I saw your video of the repair on the XR and I believe I have a similar issue. I don't really need the phone anymore. It's just always ate at me that the phone just quit and no one can fix it without losing all of my photos and such. So I do get a little bit nervous whenever I hear that these things have already been to another shop, but nobody is going to put their phone in a box and mail it in without having taken it somewhere locally. That is, well, almost nobody. So then, here we are, having a look at this phone. This is just an ordinary iPhone XR with absolutely, positively no physical damage on the outside to speak of. It looks, I mean, this thing don't even have a scratch or a crack on it. That's a really good looking phone. If I didn't know any better, I'd say that phone may not have ever even been opened before, but we all know better, right? Let's go ahead and plug it into a charger and see what we get. Ah, yes. We are getting a steady blip, blip. So I'm sure most of you already know from watching my last couple of videos that the blip, 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 blip on the DC charging current is likely going to be caused from having a short somewhere, and we're going to find out exactly what that is here and now and get this phone back up and running. So one of the very first things that I'm noticing here is that this thing actually has both pentalobe screws in it. I think somebody may have actually screwed up and sent this to the wrong shop. I'm kind of surprised it has both screws in it. Now the display, as you can see there, it does feel a little bit cushy, so I'm going to say it doesn't have much adhesive in the way here of me opening it. So to get this phone open, I'm going to start by just jabbing my blade in there like that, and it should just go ahead and pop right open because we definitely have a lack of, I don't know, it's a little harder than I thought. Okie dokie. Top latches at the top to come loose. There we are. Okay, drum roll please. Let's see what we got. What in the world is going on here? You know, I think somebody might have sent this to the wrong shop. It almost looks as if this phone has not been mutilated. We do have a little bit of shadowing down here on the SIM tray, looking like it might have just a smidgen of liquid damage, but other than that, this iPhone XR, this thing looks pretty well completely spotless inside. That's really confusing because I'm not used to getting phones in here that haven't had like a ton of different people working on them. So that makes this a genuine mystery. All right, I got all the screws removed, and now we're gonna go ahead and get these pesky shields out of the way. I'm actually thankful they're still on the phone. These things often arrive here without these shields, and then I'm stuck deciding whether or not to send them back out without the shields. There we are. We'll get the battery disconnected, and then I'm going to go ahead and kick the screen assembly out of the way. The screen assembly has been deleted. So with this phone having what I believe to be a main short, if we were to go ahead and hook this up to the DC power supply, I've got the power supply on the screen. I'm going to hook this thing up, and then we're going to turn the power supply on. And 1, 2, 3, on. It's drawing an immediate 3 amps of current. Now it's doing something a little bit strange. It is actually like blipping really fast. Down here, this is the current limiting light that shows when the power supply is limiting current. Watch what this thing is doing when I turn it on. It's like flickering really, really fast. So there's something a little bit strange going on with this one. It's not just a straight, completely shorted VCC main rail. It's got a flutter to it. So this is going to be a little bit of a mystery. I'm going to go ahead and pull the board out of this because I don't think I'm going to find the problem with the board in it. Yes. So I just found my first clue that somebody else may have already had the board out of it. This little bracket thingy down here It's twisted off to the side. I don't know, maybe they were just working on the charge port, right? Alrighty then, I've got everything disconnected and we are ready to extract the board and see what we've got. Should come out nice and easy as long as I haven't forgot anything. Yes, there we go. We have a beautiful, and I mean beautiful, iPhone XR PCB. I'm going to say that this thing has not actually been worked on before. That is, oh boy, that's kind of amazing. All right, so let's go ahead and have a look at this board under the microscope together then, shall we? It doesn't look like we have any of these precious little antenna ground pins broken over this time, does it? As with many of these board repairs, I start by removing these stickers, and I try to remove them in such a way that I can put them back on because I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and when I don't destroy them and when they're not liquid damage, taking them, you know, I put them back on is what I'm trying to say. If we don't remove these stickers, as soon as I start to warm the board up, the stickers warp and they squeeze down, whoops, on the connector. And they just get really ugly, and they can actually squeeze in far enough to cover up part of the connector. And I don't like it. So I take these off before I start using any kind of heat and doing any rework. Oh, let go of my thumb. Okay. Boy, this one is a mystery. I'm sitting here looking at it, and there are no markings on it. There's not like a big blob of corrosion. There is just literally nothing going on that can clue us in to where this short is. Let's just go ahead and remove this crazy sticker from the bottom of it and see if we can use some thermal imaging to narrow down where this little problem is, shall we? Let's see if I can pull this off here in one piece this time and not break it like I did in my last iPhone XR video. That was massively embarrassing. Yeah. Dang it, I broke it again. We're just going to pretend like we didn't see that. So then, having a look at the board view, the first thing I'm going to check, of course, is going to be the battery rail, which I really don't think we're going to have a short right there on the battery rail, but I'm going to go ahead and check it anyways. So to check that battery rail, I'm going to start with my meter in diode mode. So I'm going to put my red probe on ground and use my black probe to do the probing. On one side of the battery connector, we should get 0 because it's ground, and on the other side of the connector, we should get something less than 0. I'm getting a 0.41. That's an acceptable reading for the battery terminal. So the next line that we're going to look at here, the battery rail, it's going to go straight to the other side of the board to our little charging IC here, our little Yang Z IC. And we want to get on the other side of that IC because that's most likely where that short is going to be at. So if we look over here at R3303, and you can see that it has a trace going to one side of it and also a trace going to the other side of it, that is going to be so that something on this board can measure the voltage drop across that resistor. That is a shunt resistor, and this is set up so that it can measure current. So if we look at this side of R3303, that's on our Yang Z side of it where it's coming out of this chip, there's just not a whole lot going on here, so our odds of the short being there is like really slim to nothing. And if we look on the other side of that, you can see that this board is just laced with stuff that's on that line, and that is our VDD main line. So we can actually get to a test point and check that line right up here by this screw hole. I'm going to switch over to the microscope and test that for a short to ground right there at the screw hole. So that's going to be one of these two test points here. It's actually the one toward the outside of the board. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put my red probey probe on ground, and then I'm going to use my black probe to do the probing. And on that line, we are getting a flat 0.00. So that tells us that, again, we have a direct short to ground on VCC main. Now, so is it going to be screwed up like it was the last time and cause me to have to pull that lower shield off of it? Those of you that do work on these models, you already know that this bottom shield on the iPhone XR sucks to take off. You know, I'm gonna make a prediction here. Since this thing is not maxing out my power supply at 3.2 amps, I'm gonna say that this is most likely a 1005 component that's shorted and not a larger capacitor. I'm gonna just bet you this is a smaller component that we have shorted. I'm gonna hook up to this thing through the battery terminal and just give it little short blips with the power supply and watch it with the thermal camera. Okie dokie, so here we are looking at this board with thermal imaging. I'm gonna go ahead now and turn the power supply on, and 1, 2, 3, on. Now we get, ooh, okay, what we're gonna wanna do, we're gonna ignore this area down here at the bottom of the board, because remember we have our shunt resistor and we also have the Yang Z IC. We don't care about this area down here at the bottom of the board. We're looking for another area of the board here that's getting hot. Watch right up here next to the shield. In fact, let's just scoot that on down out of the way like that so that the thermal imager stops calibrating here at the bottom. Watch right here next to that CPU shield. I'm going to turn the power supply on. Ah, yes. Thank you. I don't have to take that bottom shield off. Yes. So this tells me that we have a short right up here near the top of the board, and because it is popping through so quickly, it is either on the bottom side of the board and it's really hot, or it's on the top side of the board right here under this shield and it's just, you know, blasting out from under the shield. So if we switch back over here now and look at the board view, right there next to the corner of that shield, we have a ton that it could be. Well, actually we have two that it could be. We have C5002 and also C5003. This can be either one of these, but then if it's something that's getting like much hotter on the bottom side of the board, what are our options there? If we look on the same side of the board, okay, we have C4499 and C4495. It can actually be either one of these as well. So we're gonna wanna try to isolate, you know, which of these it is. I'm gonna flip the board over now and just have a look at the bottom side of it. And what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna set the thermal camera to where it's looking just right here at that spot. And I'm gonna try to keep all other things hot out of the camera. All right, here we go. Let's see what that looks on the bottom side of the board. And 1, 2, 3, on. Boy, I'm just not getting hardly anything at all there on the bottom side. Let's try to flip this thing up. And look at it right there on its corner. Also trying to keep my hot fingers out of the view. All right, here we go. Turn the power supply on, and 1, 2, 3, on. Oh yeah, there we can see that that's on the top side. The top side here is on the right side. You know, that's on this side. So this is going to be a shorted cap under the CPU shield. Yeah, thank you. All right, I got this thing popped down into a holder. I'm gonna set my air on a 430 degrees C. We're gonna do probably an airflow of 60. Actually, let's make that 450 degrees C. And I'm gonna start then warming this thing up. We'll take this little strip of glue out of here. There we go. Yeah, this shield, this comes off a whole lot easier than that bottom one. I'm just going to get my tweezers under the corner over here and start lifting up on it. It's already moving. There we go. The shield has been deleted. And right off the smack here, we are mostly concerned with a cap right here at the corner. So now, having a look at this with the microscope, and if we get in here and look very closely, I actually don't see anything wrong. Like, I kind of wonder if maybe it's on the bottom of the board and I just took that shield off without needing to. So it may be a little more difficult now because everything's hot, but here we are looking at that exact spot with a thermal camera. That's that little row of capacitors there. I'm going to turn the power supply on, and 1, 2, 3, on. Oh no, it's definitely that cap. Look at that. Quite plain as day, loud and clear. We have one single cap there causing us some shenanigans. This means that I was wrong. It's not a 1005 causing it. It's a larger capacitor. So having a look at that under the microscope again, this means the cap that is causing all of this trouble is this one right here. So I'm just going to warm this up a little bit and shave this adhesive away with my blade. And I'm pretty sure I can see the crack in it now. Now if we put the blade in right next to it and just give it a little bit of a nudging. Now being very careful because the capacitor next to it, it's also made out of ceramic and we want to make dang sure not to crack it as well. So we'll just go ahead and nudge this little dude right out of the way here. Very nice. Nice proper capacitor removal. And I am going to go ahead and drop a capacitor right back in place here. It is completely okay to leave this capacitor off the board. There are plenty of other capacitors. And these things are way over-engineered. This is just to smooth out ripples on VCC main. And there are many times that I start to believe that they literally just put these things on the board to take up space. All right, let's get us some solder in here. Now, as you can see, that this is actually heated up to a point where it has, possibly exposed some of the ground plane here. That could get really, really ugly whenever I start putting solder in here. So I'm going to be trying not to let that spread and just get solder all over everything. First, I'm going to remove this bit of a pad here. There we go. And I've left behind already a nice little dome to set a new capacitor on. And I might nitpick on that a little bit because I'm ridiculous. All right, let's see if I can get the other one to shine up a little bit without getting solder all over the exposed ground plane. We'll take it. We're going to leave it exactly like it is. So now I'm going to take a brand spanking new capacitor and get this put in place. I've actually got some people that are offended by my use of the words brand spanking new. I think it's the way I say new. So I'm not going to say new this time. I'm just going to say brand spanking. So let's get the brand spanking capacitor in here. I don't know, maybe it's the word brand. We're going to be, don't fly away. Just going to warm this up and let this thing fall nicely into place. Probably add a little bit of flux to it. Definitely going to add a little bit of flux to it. I should have tinned the cap just a little bit. In which, by the way, I'm using a lower temperature alloy here because I am soldering right up against some stuff that I don't want to get too hot. Backing off with my heat. Oh yeah, there we go, baby. We have a nicely replaced spanking new capacitor. Now I'm going to clean this up with some alcohol. You may notice that my solder didn't flow perfectly down around here on this side, and I'm going to leave it like that because I don't want to risk having a big old blob of solder travel out onto that exposed ground plane that you can see there. Now, since the alloy that I just used to solder that capacitor on there, it's going to melt at around the same exact temperature as what the alloy on the shield's going to melt at, I'm going to take just a smidgen of glue here. This is green UV mask, and I'm just going to sort of blob this stuff in here. And I'm going to do this to try to make sure that this capacitor doesn't move whenever I put the shield back on. And I'm also covering up this exposed ground plane with it, so we'll just kind of get this around here on the edges. You don't want it to be too deep, too thick, otherwise the ultraviolet won't actually cure it up. There we go, that's actually going to be plenty. Let's get rid of this little hair here. Now to cure this glue, I'm using a really bright ultraviolet light. I don't know why I don't have this attached to the microscope yet, but there we go. I'm just going to sit this right on here and give it a couple of seconds to cure up, and we'll move on from here. All right, I have got this thing all cured up, and now I'm going to just hook it right back to my DC power supply. We're going to turn the power supply on and make sure that that short is gone. So here we are, and 1, 2, 3, on. I can pretty well close my eyes and know that it's going to be gone, so yes. Ah, yes, 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 very nice. I'm going to put the sticker back on there just like I found it, even though I seem to have tore it a little bit. There we go. That's going to be just fine. Yeah, so I'm just in here cleaning up around the frame to install some new adhesive in this, and I'm just noticing that this phone is also missing a standoff post down in here and a screw that goes on top of here. So I'm thinking, actually no, I'm no longer thinking, I'm saying that the charge port on this has most likely been out of it before. This little sticker here has been tampered with, and boy, there's nothing like going after a charge port replacement whenever we've got a VD to main short, huh? So let's see if I can just, will this one fit? Ah, yes. It's just marvelous. There we are. Good as new. Alrighty then, we have got this thing all the way reassembled. I have reattached all of the brackets and screws, and we do not have any extra parts. And also, we have a brand spanking new gasket in it. So I'm just going to close that back up while evaluating whether or not I left any big old chunks of stuff laying on top of the camera lenses and, you know, stuff like that. And this thing will go right back together nicely. And then we're ready to have us a nice little test run then. Shall we? Alrighty then, so I have this thing fully reassembled and I'm getting ready to find out what happens. Remember before we just got a blip, 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 blip on the charging current meter, and now we are getting 70 milliamps, 1 amp. It jumps straight to 1 amp. These batteries, they have a circuit breaker in them that gets tripped. Here you can see we're drawing a nice 1 amp of charging current after it kind of dropped around and got all crazy for a second. These batteries, they have a circuit breaker inside of them so that whenever the boards get like full shorted like this, they have a way of the cell being like really, really charged, but having no voltage on the output. And so it's really common after fixing a main short, and I don't know if you can see now, but it's just a steady 1 amp of charging current. It's really common after fixing a main short for a battery just to snap right out of it and then have 80 or 90% charge. This battery is actually at 53% charged, and we have a nice steady 1 amp of charging current. I'm going to take a quick break from this video and grab a backup of this phone because I do have a passcode, and I will be back with you in a moment. Okie dokie, I have got a full backup of this phone, and I'm going to move it back over to a charger and off of the computer. This phone is going to be fully functional, and this is also going to be a happy customer. She's going to get her phone back in full working condition, and it still has all of the data on it, so that's a really good success story. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you like my video, please give me a thumbs up, and you know, if you're still watching after all this time and you're not subscribed yet, you might as well go ahead and subscribe because there is more coming. I'll see you in the next one, everybody. Have a good day.